All right, well, welcome to another edition of the Create the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Candice Smiley, and here we talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. Now, I'm super stoked because my guest today, we just met like a few minutes ago. So, we are literally doing, as you know, I love to do the unscripted, candid conversations with people who are out there getting it done. This is an influencer podcast. So, we're talking to people who are thought leaders, they're people who are trying to make change in their little tiny corner of the world. So without any further ado, Jamie, let us know who you are and what you're all about these days.
Hi, my name is Jaime McKeag Reber. I'm from Leduc, Alberta. Well, I'm originally from Fort McMurray, but me and my husband are in the Leduc area now. And I'm the kind of owner of Aurora Yoga. We used to be Aurora Yoga and Spa, but unfortunately we did not make it through COVID. So we actually made the very difficult decision to shut our doors just 3 months ago yesterday. And it was the hardest decision of my life, but we are rolling with the punches. We've been doing virtual yoga and very excited for some nice weather to start getting outside.
I was going to say, I am so loving the weather, but so my birthday's in about 2 weeks, and I'm like, do not trust the weather because
Never
it's
trust the
snowed
weather.
on my birthday way too many times. So, well, that's exciting. I'm always intrigued when someone joins me and I haven't met them before, where in the world they're from. So you and I are basically neighbors, which is super duper awesome. I find myself currently in Edmonton, which is a good time. I'm itching for springtime now because I want to get away and get to the mountains because that's certainly home and home base for me. So, what made your shift down from Fort McMurray down to where you find yourself now?
You know what? I moved into the Edmonton area. I think I was 20 years old. I came down here for a 9-month school stint and just never left. Both my husband and I grew up in Fort McMurray, and then we met through some friends, and his family settled in Leduc after they left Fort McMurray. So Leduc he came here when he was in grade 10. So we just decided to stick around here. So we actually live just outside of Leduc in a little town called Kalmar.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. I laughed when you said come and stayed because I left my parents' farm, which is about an hour east of Edmonton, to come to Edmonton to go to school for nurses training. And the intention was to become a nurse practitioner and be a midwife and then travel all over the world. I've not really left. I've basically bounced from their place to the farm and then back into Edmonton again, depending on what life has done. So I smile when someone says never quite left. That was also not the plan. But yoga, tell me
Yeah.
more about that. That is something that I've always been fascinated with, intrigued with, have certainly practiced um, regularly, not so regularly throughout my life, but I'd love to hear what led you to starting your own studio.
So I actually started out as a massage therapist when I was 17, and then I became an esthetician. That's what I came to Edmonton for when I was
Yeah,
20.
yeah.
So I think I was 25. It was 2014 anyways, and I decided to go for my yoga teacher training. And from there, I wanted to create this business where I could do massage and aesthetics and yoga all in the same house, because I think just that self-care, self-love, it all fit under one house. So I actually opened my very first studio on Jasper Ave, and then I opened my second one in Leduc. So we closed our first one serendipitously February 1st of 2020. Thank God. To
Mhm,
try and go through COVID with both of them would have financially ruined me.
mhm.
And then, so I guess your tagline of trusting the niggle, October of 2019, we were looking at everything and we were like, you know what, like, I just don't think this one fits for us anymore and what we want for our future.
Mhm.
And I'm really glad that I trusted that, like, Jedi intuition.
Right, it's that wiggle, like there's something here. No, that's amazing that you at least had the courage to listen to it. I mean, that's where it comes from, trusting and then telling the truth, which is not necessarily about telling the truth to anybody else, but first and foremost to yourself, right? Which is
Yeah.
integrity
Yeah.
comes from.
It was definitely a very hard decision to shut down that first one, because whenever you shut down a business, it's you're not just you're not just like closing the doors on
Mhm.
a physical space, you're also potentially saying goodbye to a community of people, but you're also recognizing that your dream and all of your hard work that you've put into something not that it wasn't worth it, but that it's just no longer, there's no longer space for that. So it's really like that recognition that this dream is complete, or this dream has had to take a shift. That's really challenging, but I'm grateful that we did it.
Good. Well, I'm glad you've already come to that space of gratitude around a shift and a change. You've moved, as you said, to the virtual element. How are you finding that in terms of supporting people through yoga in the virtual space?
Well, I mean, we never set out to be virtual yoga instructors. So there's this bittersweet element to it where, the Leduc location, which we only just shut down 3 months ago, like that had a bigger piece of my heart. And it was super challenging to say goodbye to that, especially after working for 10 months in COVID to try and save it. To finally acknowledge that we couldn't save it anymore was really, really heartbreaking. And being in person and teaching yoga in person is what I'm passionate about, but I'll take anything at this point. So right now I teach yoga personally 6 a.m.s Monday, Wednesday, Friday for our sunrise crew, and then we do a couple sunrise challenges throughout the year. And then my staff that used to teach for me in the Leduc location, they're still teaching evenings, and just still trying to connect and stay together in some way, so that hopefully we can come back in person eventually.
So that would be a hope then for you, that you'd be able to and hit the restart button, I guess, and do in person again.
Yeah, just before these new restrictions came back in, we had teamed up with a couple, and we're talking about teaming up more with a couple different places within the Leduc area that were offering space for us, so that we could still bring our communities in. And it's like a little bit of cross promoting as well, and cross marketing, and just giving us a space. We still have lots of people that have passes left over that the idea of just walking away without them having the opportunity to use them kind of sucks. So it's been this amazing this amazing thing that's come out of COVID, is businesses that once considered themselves competition are just like, we are in this industry, this fitness industry, we only have each other's backs, and we're the only people who get it. So how can we help each other survive, which is it's a really cool thing to see, wherein usually when there's competition, it's a little bit more like each man for themselves, each woman for themselves.
Themselves. Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I'm curious to know what your favorite part about yoga is. I was originally introduced to it because I was doing a lot of lifting, which I really enjoyed in my younger years, and found my body getting fairly tight. And so I was encouraged to go and check out yoga. Now, I'm a hardcore introvert, and so doing things in a group, in a room, is not my happy place. But one of my very first experiences in a yoga class, the instructor actually came over and helped me find a position. And it was this crazy moment where I was like, oh, that's how it's supposed to feel. And I got to tell you, after that moment, I was like totally hooked, right? Because of just of how the alignment, right? It wasn't even the stretch or anything like that. It was just like, oh, wow, I didn't even think I could do that. And that's, certainly been has driven me to the mat more often than not when I need to sort of find that center and alignment again, more mental and emotional, spiritual than even the physical element.
The thing I love about yoga, and I've always been pretty active in my adult years, not my younger years. I run a lot now. I loved the gym at one point. I still like working out a lot, and I always like trying new things. Me and my husband love rock climbing, and like we hike, we dirt bike, we do. If you say, here, this new thing, and you were like, yeah, okay, let's give it a shot. The thing that I love about yoga is the ability that it's such a complementary practice. If you do CrossFit, you can do yoga because it helps you get to that next level. If you are a runner, you are usually encouraged to do yoga because it helps prevent injuries. There's this whole other thing where yoga kind of complements everything. But the other side of it is, in lots of different physical aspects or physical activities that I've done before, it's not quite pushed that mind-body connection as it is literally shoved down your throat in yoga, which that's kind of the point. So I love, when my clients, when my students come to me and they're like, I started doing yoga and now my running ability has gotten me this much better. I started doing yoga and it made me a better rock climber. I started doing yoga and I found more confidence in my body to try these next things. And that self exploration of yoga, I think, is the most beautiful part.
I agree. I can, as we're discussing, I'm thinking about, things and positions that I only was able to do when I was in that room sharing space with those people, and how much of an impact it would have I've been an entrepreneur now a long time. And it's really easy to sort of get in that mode, especially for a long time. Jamie, I was more focused on in my masculine energy than I was in my feminine. And recently have been coming to sort of bring those two back together and, be more in the feminine and, learning that the two can be married together, right? Because they both exist within us. And it was really in those moments in the yoga that I would come out feeling like I'm capable again and it's possible. And those things that I felt were overwhelming beforehand were there. So I love how you put that the mind body connection is basically shoved down your throat in yoga. But I think that that's important, right? We sort of need that hard stop sometimes to get in the flow and remind ourselves that we are so much more than just, these human suits dealing with so many different things that are coming at us, especially right now um, in the pandemic, which is crazy.
Hey, it's Candice. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called BioCell. BioCell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not got into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be your customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show, and without any further ado, back to the show.
Well, and I think with yoga, there's so much strength to it, but it's this slow, beautiful process to it that I think it encourages us to sit or stand or, hang out in warrior two for a minute. And yeah, it might be challenging for a moment, but you can do it. And sometimes those small wins on your yoga mat can make a huge impact in every other aspect of your life, whether it's physical, whether it's mental and emotional. I mean, even just going through this pandemic and going through the last 3 months, the last 3 months for myself have been the hardest 3 months of my entire life. And there are moments where I need to be on my mat, and there's moments where I need to run as fast as I can. And I think having the ability to go to either of those things, and to find, our meditation practices, to find our yoga practices when we're in crippling anxiety or in crippling despair, having those tools in our back pockets gives us the confidence that we will get through it because we've gotten through it, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Do you find yourself teaching this or wishing we could be teaching this to even younger generations? I'm thinking about, I have a 6-year-old, and for a while she went to a Montessori program and they taught her yoga. And, she loves showing off her tree pose or, whatever the animal pose was, right? Of course, they're all about the animals at that stage, but, that she, specifically for me, last year in 2020, the beginning of the pandemic was the most tumultuous. Resulted in a relationship I thought was going to last forever, did not. Some business relationships, basically, once I had said, I'm done with this and this no longer serves me, even though I loved it, I'm grateful for it and wish it would continue. I know that it's not going to into this next phase of my life. The only thing I found peace in, other than backcountry camping, which I discovered is a form of meditation. When you're walking 20K or 14K in a day, right? At some point, it's like you're leading into that pose in yoga and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And then you discover there is more in the tank. But I would sit there and I would, assume a position of, child's pose, or I would just sit there and close my eyes and just, focus on breathing, very yogic breathing. And she would be, she would sort of sit there and come into pose with me, right? One eye open, see if I was, moving yet. But it was interesting because she intimately understood. Mummy's in meditation. Mummy is, mummy's there. And I remember thinking how much more so that she's seeing that this is how I'm dealing with grief and change. It's slow down and hold space rather than, push through or manage or medicate in one way or another. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot, is how do I incorporate more of the yoga into my daily, so she can see that.
Yeah, I think it's important that we start people off as young as possible, giving them the tools that they need to self-soothe and to move through challenges. I hardly ever teach kids yoga because I only have Star Wars in my back pocket. But we have some really amazing yoga teachers who taught for me, who taught kids, and like it was so amazing watching these kids come in and they're crazy and they're running around, and then you see them in their postures and they're calm and they get it, and it's so sweet. And I think that kids have the ability to like almost step into that meditation or buy into this like mind-body connection almost a little bit faster than adults can. So if we can cultivate that at an early age, I think that could serve a lifetime.
I've been thinking a lot about that, right? Because obviously, I'm, tail end of the millennials. And we've grown up with, tablets and technology and or bombarded, but certainly my kidlet, can use her tablet better than I can, right? And I use it all the time. And I keep on thinking about that same piece, right? That, she is busy, but then if we decide we're going to hit the yoga mat together, by the time that's done, she handles her day entirely differently. And I keep thinking, a lot of the things that we're running into today, if we had been more prepared, this past, I was gonna say week, but the last couple of weeks, to be honest, a number of people in my more inner circle, so people that I interact with on a fairly regular basis, have all realized that they're struggling with some mental well-being issue. I don't like to call it mental health or mental illness because that's not part of it. We've lost a lot of routine recently. We've lost a lot of things that people have both
found their worth and their value in, and people who would have never thought that they needed to take care of their well-being proactively are discovering that they needed to, and they needed to have coping strategies in place. And I keep on thinking about how much more so if we gave kids, some of these proactive, here's how you cope, here's how you deal with this, here's how you quiet your mind, here's how you not deal with anxiety. That can have such a huge impact. Fast forward, because we know from studies that if we would just fix some of the issues around poverty and some of the stuff for kids, we change the entire course of not just one kid, but an entire generation. And I think yoga has a huge part in that.
Yeah, I think all of the mindful practices and the teaching observation without judgment, like teaching the ability to have emotional intelligence, right? Like I don't know at what age kids start learning their emotions, but being able to identify, like for themselves, being like, okay, I'm angry right now. This is what I need. Or I feel, sad and hopeless. This is what I need. And being able to, I think, and I don't know, again, I don't have kids, but the ability to describe, or I'm trying to think of the right words, but come to terms or create terms for their feelings earlier, instead of, just happy, sad, and that's it, right? Like happy, sad, angry.
Right. No, I get it. And, especially as women, we're not taught that it's okay to be angry, right? That it's okay to, to feel mad about that. We're taught to be good girls. I was listening to an audiobook yesterday, and she was talking about the fact that one of the stories that little girls are read is Little Red Riding Hood, right? Which is be a good girl and take this to grandma's house. And, the minute she got curious is when she discovered the big bad wolf, and things did not go well. And I remember thinking, you're right. It's so interesting how those things are sort of ingrained in us, right? To be quiet and to be obedient and all those things versus, now, I mean, with the pandemic, we're noticing an increase of violence against women and children. We're noticing like there's a lot of challenges, that we're beginning to encounter. And thank goodness we're having conversations like the one you and I are having, where we're saying there are options and there are proactive options, and we can teach people those things. What's next for you? If you have not, you're not doing the yoga the way you were, where's your heart leading you in the next few weeks, few months, as we see what this pandemic continues to bring?
It's a really hard question. We are creating different kind of connections with other businesses, like I said. Even when we shut down our studio in January, we were actually pregnant at the time. So that was kind of like in my head, that was going to be, all right, that's the next step. We're going to start going into this family mode that we have been debating for the last 5 years. And we ended up losing our baby at 10 weeks. So then there was like this whole kind of dialogue of like, well, now I have no identity anymore. I'm not a business owner anymore. I am, but not on the same aspect. And, I am at this current time not going to go down that motherhood road. So I still don't know. We're still trying to find what that looks like. And for the first few months, because we closed down January 18th, and I started going through the miscarriage at the end of February. So for March was just, my mental health was completely gone. And it was really hard as a goal person, as someone who has had the next 5 years of my life charted out in like every single pattern, and I have never failed at hitting they take me longer sometimes, or I switch the goals around, but I have always hit my mark. And it's a little strange right now, where even, as business owners, I'm not sure if you feel the same, but it almost has this air of why bother? Because everything that we want to create right now, for me, in the way that I work with people, it's like, but when? when are we going to be able to be back in person? When are we going to be able to move through these things? And I think this last year, and like, let's not get too political, but there's almost a lack of confidence in how long until the government might change their minds on something, even if we do get started. So I am kind of embracing, I just had my birthday. I just turned 33 last week. So I'm kind of embracing this exploration and self-discovery of who I am without either of those aspects and what we're going to do from here. I think like right now I'm teaching some workshops online that are yoga, like chakra inspired and Ayurvedic inspired. And I think in my heart, I will always work with people and trying to help them explore their own energetic states and explore their own ways of finding their way to balance. I think that that will always be something that I do, but what that looks like on the grand scale of things, I'm really not sure. I put my marriage on the back burner, I feel like, for the last 5 years of business ownership. So I'm definitely trying to be kinder to my husband and you know, be more present with him. And I have, I think, almost a baseball team full of nieces and nephews. So I'm really dedicated right now to being as present with them as possible. And I think the next little bit looks like presence and self-discovery. And then once we start to see what this world is going to look like, take it by storm when we're ready.
Wow, it's amazing. Well, first, I'm sorry to hear that you went through that kind of grief.
Thank
I'm
you.
currently expecting. So, you know, I sense and feel, you know, that for sure. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
It was a great year for me, so I'm excited for you. And kudos to you for really just, you know, realizing that and getting present. You know, time is that one resource we don't get back. And so, you know, kudos to you for really taking the time to pause. Last year for me, after the breakup, I spent about 14 weeks. You know, I say in my own kind of quarantine, I completely missed the first shutdown because I was just in my own little world and working through that. Emerged, just basically the rest of the world was emerging. And so then when the second shutdown happened, I was like, what do we do now? Like, how does this work? And what's the plan? And everybody's like, where were you? And I was like, healing. Like, I spent 14 weeks with a therapist on Mondays and a feminine balance coach on Thursdays, and pretty much everybody else I knew in my world who was willing to offer their time, effort, and energy and skill to, you know, go through some of those things that I had sort of said my whole life, when I get a chance, or when I'm not so busy, or when work lets up, or when I finally make, you know, X amount of dollars, you know, I'll stop and heal, right? I'll stop and heal. I'll stop and heal. And, you know, last year basically was, no, you're going to sit and you're going to heal. And from that moment of quiet reflection and presence, falling back in love with myself and realizing that, you know, my soul was deep and old and wise, and maybe I should spend more time with myself. Came, you know, this rebranded podcast and the magazine, the publication, and so many other amazing things that even surprise me when I look back and go, wow, that was quite the year, and not at all what I had planned when I sat down to do my goals. And I'm a hardcore goal girl. You know, in January. Like, there just was nothing like it. And so, you know, this year was like, I'm going to plan this, but I leave open in case source, you know, has different ideas, and I'll be at peace with where that goes. So kudos to you for really acknowledging where you're at right now.
Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee. But I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.
Powerful.
That first, the first shutdown and beyond, I think for myself, I was in such a state of survival mode for my company and for myself as well, I guess, where it was like pins and needles, eggshells, like, okay, what are they saying now? What are they saying now? What can we do from here? What can we do from here? Okay, let's pivot. That I often joke that I'm like Chandler, where I'm like, no, no more pivots.
No more.
But so I'm when we first shut down the studio in January, that the first little bit after that, I was like, maybe I pulled the plug too early. Maybe, the end of the road was right around the corner, and I shut down just before crossing the finish line. And when we've shut down into this next wave of this, like we would have only been open for 3 weeks out of 6 months. Like that sucks. So I've kind of found that confidence in that decision that I made when I trusted that second niggle and said like,
good girl.
Oh, we are not going to make it through this. Did you watch that show, Queen's Gambit?
Oh, loved it. Yes.
Oh, so, I feel like I can describe the niggle for me. I was watching that show and there's that scene where she's learning how to play chess and he's like, you just gave up your queen. This is where you resign. And she was like, no, I still have moves. And he's like, no, this is where you resign. And I remember I was watching it. I was binging that show on a weekend, but I was working like 12-hour days, massaging like crazy, they shut down yoga. And I was just trying to make rent on December 1st because what are we going to do if we don't make rent? And the government didn't offer us anything, even though they shut down the biggest part of my business. Mm-hmm. And I was watching that and I was like, holy crap. Is that me right now? Mm-hmm. Am I just focused on this one move and I'm not seeing the whole board? And that was the first moment where I was like, oh, we need to start paying attention here. Like stop just paying attention on work, try to make it. And we need to start looking at like the big picture here because this is a big picture thing. This pandemic has affected everyone in different ways, but we need, I needed to start paying attention fully. And then 2 weeks later, they put us into that second shutdown. When we hit that second shutdown, I was relieved because they finally offered funding and it was finally a moment where we could breathe. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll still make it because 4 weeks and then we're going to reopen fully and like at what we were before, and then we'll be fine. And then they didn't. And I was like, okay, back to the chessboard that I'm seeing the whole board here. And that's when we made the decision. But that inkling, that feeling that, hey, pay attention for a second, was it must have been from something. That's all I can say. Because I don't know, like, I feel like as goal-oriented people, sometimes we get so focused, we get like just hyper focused, peripherals out. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. Everything else can wait until I hit this mark. And hitting that mark feels so
Good.
good, so good. And it's hard to say, okay, we're not going to try and hit this goal anymore. But I don't know what just woke me up that day and was like, you need to pay attention. And I think now I've made the right decision. And even just having the ability to go through the miscarriage without, like, how am I going to pay my staff, without that stress added on top of it. And then to go through the mental health of the despair and all the things that come with that, to be able to go through that with that space and with that grace of not having to worry about staff, because I always worry about staff. I think that was divine intervention. It had to have been.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there is something to that, right? That you realize you've been given space. And that's a gift. I know it's been a challenge for me, as I feel like some of the things I'm currently doing now are sort of, ideas that are born of like much bigger, because I don't necessarily feel like I know what the next move is. But every time I sort of try to pull back and say, is it time for me to resign? The doors actually open, which has been an entirely different experience for me, having previously been more my masculine. And so very much always pushing and always moving. And now almost being like hesitant to be like, if it is, then please show. And then the doors open. I think, okay, I don't necessarily know if I'm still capable, or if I'm, what the next steps are and how is this going to be affected and what's the next move. And, like, it's been an incredible, incredible journey for so many of us, especially as entrepreneurs. And you're right. Right now, there's not a lot of competition. We're kind of all going, hey, yo, how you doing? We're in this together. What's the next step? So
I think it's going to be like, some of the conversations that I'm excited to have is like 5 years from now, when everything's kind of, I don't know what it's going to look like, but when we're like, hey, remember how crazy we were before? And then look what came of it after. Like, I looked at my 2020 resolutions and the businesses that I was getting attached to, and the people that I was collaborating with. And, my husband and I, we were actively looking at building a rock climbing gym in Leduc. We were, we had an investor lined up. We had another one on, like, getting ready. And like, if the pandemic didn't happen right when it did, I don't know what would have happened. But it's now I'm like, ew,
yeah,
Jimmy, why were you being so crazy? Like, what? But you get into, once you start achieving, you get into this mind frame of you can achieve anything. But there's this one yoga text called the Bhagavad Gita, and in it they talk about that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I feel like I've come out of this, even though we're not out of the pandemic, but I've come out of these last experiences going, okay, just because I can do those things, should I be doing those things? Like, what do I want for my life? And what am I willing to fight for if we ever have to go through this again? There's almost like that. So I think it's going to be interesting in 5 years when we go, once we were forced to calm down and once we were forced to think and to see the broad picture, who do we become and what do we achieve? And would that have been in the same direction if the pandemic didn't happen? I'm hoping really good conversations come out of it to make this whole thing worth it.
yeah, I agree with you. And I think, if I look at my life, it's like an entirely different life. I'm not working with the same people. I'm not doing the same things. It's not so far out that people are like, that's weird, but people are like, they're not even asking, what are you doing anymore? I think people have come to realize that, the things we defined ourselves before as is not what we will be in the future. I think a lot of us have come to realize that things we thought were pretty certain are not. And that's really shifted how we have moved forward. So I love that what you're saying about, these conversations and Yeah, that you kind of woke up and went, it's like, wow, that was not what I wanted actually. And you're probably like me, right? We're achievers. So we love that sense of accomplishment. Like it's like our juice, man. I think. And sometimes it's good to have the roadblock thrown up so we can actually question whether or not we should or not. So with that in mind, Jamie, I'd love to sort of just open up the floor if there's something that you wanted to leave our listeners with. Now would be a great time to just sort of share that and sort of bring it home.
The biggest piece of advice that and I probably stole this from 1,000 Instagram posts that I have seen before. But no matter what it is that you want to do, whether it's paint, whether it's, something that has nothing to do with business, maybe it has something to do with business, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe it's like whatever it is that is trying to set your soul on fire with passion, you can't be held back by the ideas that you're not ready or that it's not the right time or that you're not good enough, because there are always people doing things that have less talent, less passion, less inspiration, less drive, and they're probably killing it anyways. So if there's something that's pulling you in that direction, no matter what, you should just give it a shot and see what happens.
That's really, really powerful. And thank you for that. I have been doing a few recordings recently, and that word pull has come recently. And I've been thinking about that because in the past, I did a lot of pushing, right, from the masculine energy. It's an entrepreneurial thing. For a long time, I thought I had to be like the boys in order to, really find my place. And I'm discovering, especially since I went through the grief and I couldn't do anything that wasn't lined up with my purpose. It was so easy, Jamie, to know what needed to go, the people, the places, the things, as I would like try to sit up and come out of meditation to do work. And I'm like, I don't want this client anymore. Like, whatever you gotta do, like, let's get rid of it and we're done. And then other ones that I was like, oh, I actually feel like I want to talk to you. And it was sort of a gentle pull, like right out of my solar plexus, just this little pull. And that's what I've been sort of listening to or sensing, because I try to sense things in my body, is that little pull. And I love how you just brought that up, that if there's this pull, to follow that. And how powerful is that? Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're so welcome.
Awesome. Well, to the rest of my listeners, you know the drill. I feel like Jamie and I touched on some really key things today about surviving in the pandemic and working through all the things that it's bringing up, both for healing on a personal level and on business level, and how powerful that is as we make fresh starts and new starts and pivot, even when we don't want to. And then the power of that opens up in terms of possibility. When we let go of who we are, then we get to become who we might be. And how powerful, Jamie, that you were able to show up and share that very raw, very authentic part of your journey with us today. So thank you for showing up that way. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really beautiful conversation.
Awesome. All right. For the rest of you, thank you so much for listening. If you got value out of this, go find me or Jamie and let us know online. We love and appreciate the feedback. And for the rest of you, we'll catch you on the flip side.